like when it was open too, I felt
Yeah.
the draft.
After
Yeah.
an e-mean deal,
So,
get back in, yeah.
all right, so we have,
I know who to call now when I screw
this is
something
the
up.
hazardous waste agreement. Ouch. It's a banner day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Thursday, February 14th, 2013 Sherborn Board of Selectmen's meeting. As usual, I will read the agenda. We will propose amendments thereunto and move forward voting on them. So well, a word first. You may notice my new fashion accessory. I've had a couple of pneumonias since Christmas, and my doctors are insisting that I be careful with my lungs and have some O2. Well, they test me for all kinds of devious and horrible things, so I didn't want anybody to be shaken up. I'm still just as ornery as ever. So, but anyway, I wanted people to know that there was something going on there.
Before you leave that, we've promised you a short and brief meeting.
Oh, thank you. Yes, if everybody could stay on time, it would be great. And one of my amendments is going to help that.
We're going to move some items off this agenda to a later agenda, so that
For which there's a good reason
Go home.
besides my need to be out of here too, but I appreciate that. And, okay, so at 6:05, public comment, as the agenda stands now. 6:20, warrant article proponents, Avon Remillard being the one named. 6:30, Neil McPherson and the Fire Chief Search Committee, giving us an update on what their next steps would be. And to consider the acceptance of a SAFE grant, and Neil McPherson will present us with that. At 7, a public safety discussion with Chief Thompson, Chief McPherson, Ed Wagner, and the Traffic Safety Committee. 7:20, the appointments to the Wildlife Management Committee. 7:30, draft warrant discussion. 8 o'clock, review and possible approval of warrant number 33. 8:05, a request from the town accountant. Discussion and a vote to deficit spend for the snow and ice budget. Hardly a new issue. 8:10, Carol Rubenstein presents us with the hazardous materials reciprocal agreement for the year 2013. Another exciting and yearly event. So that is the agenda as it stands. I would like to propose that we move the 7:30 event to a special meeting on Monday the 25th, which would have two items. One, the special act for the TA, and 2, the review of the draft warrant, so that we can consider all of the articles brought forth by the proponents and finalize what the Board of Selectmen is going to do with that, have any discussions that are required for that. That is the single amendment to the agenda that I can generate. So if
move to approve the agenda as amended.
I second that. Just discussion, just so we're clear, we're going to have a healthy discussion that evening on
yeah.
what's on the warrant.
that's the full
Will
meeting.
you allow for public interaction as well?
I'm glad you brought that up. What I'd like to do, and the reason I noticed 2 separate agenda items there,
Yep.
I would like the selectmen, at the selectmen's table, to discuss and define amongst each other the salient features of the special act, such that if we have questions amongst ourselves as to what this means, how it's going to work,
Yep.
what is the upshot, what's the interpretation,
Right.
what's the language, that we can sort that out amongst ourselves, so that when we do speak to the public, which will be the next step in that,
Yep.
that we can answer with one voice about
Okay.
this. It's becoming an issue that there's a lot of misinformation, and for make sure that we are in the public eye, on the same page, understanding the same issues, presenting the same data to the public, then we can actually answer questions sensibly and not play this chase game of what does this mean and who said what, and the incessant game of who shot
Okay.
John.
Yep, okay.
But thank you for that. Does
Yep.
that address
Yep.
what you were looking for? So yeah, we will. That's the.
Great.
I suspect that will be a.
Who shot John?
Nobody knows. We know who shot JR, but who shot John? That's the whole point.
Who's
I
this
just don't
John?
remember who shot JR.
Pam. Oh, Pam shot JR. I'm ashamed of you, Peter. But anyway, so we're moved and seconded for discussion on that issue, and if it's all right, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, so that puts our agenda a little more in phase. So the agenda is now approved as it stands. It is 6:05 and time for public comment. Jim Burns.
Gentlemen, may I be the first to wish the board happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. It's
Oh,
insane that we're here.
I could give you a kiss.
Thank you.
There we go.
Appreciate that
Well
distance.
done.
Tom, is there a drop dead date relative to the warrant articles being finalized and going to the printer?
Yeah, at the moment, we're looking at, again, this 25th meeting
Yeah.
for discussion, 28th to finalize, and I think first is the signing of the thing, right? First is the day that it's officially.
Yes, but this is a more complicated answer. A citizen article, we closed the time for citizen articles some time ago. And you submitted
Oh, it's true.
a citizen article with signatures. That has to go on the warrant
You understand?
as a matter of law, the way it is.
Right.
And what can be done is at town meeting, you can do a motion that's different from what's on the warrant. It just can't be wildly different, but if it's basically on the same subject matter, that's when you usually do it.
Yeah.
So, the dates he's talking about is the dates we're gonna be signing the warrant
With the things that we've accepted.
with the things that we've accepted.
So
That's just
far.
a clerical job of trying to assemble all the pieces. We have Jeannie putting together all the pieces and
Okay.
all of
But
that.
on the 25th, are you opening the warrant at that point in time?
I don't think so.
So,
I don't think that we're doing that, but,
what is it that you?
I was just gonna say,
My point is, SPAN, under the approval of the Board of Selectmen, have sought counsel with our town council, and she assisted us in writing a article in the format that she could get behind, if you will. And this is for medical marijuana treatment centers and basically zoning them out of Sherborn. And what SPAN would like to do is propose a new warrant article and ask if the Board of Selectmen would like to co-sponsor that with us. That way we could work together on that draft PowerPoint that you now have in your packet and come together as a community and get behind this and have it go to town meeting.
Would town council allow your motion, the motion, to be within the confines of the article that you've already written?
No,
No?
no, she feels it's
Too different?
an article.
two different articles.
Yeah.
Well, that's a toughie, because we closed the day for everybody.
So you can't, and she said specifically that you can't work within the wheelhouse of the article that's gonna go to the floor anyway?
She felt that the one that she prepared with our help was a brand-new article that we could only bring forward as a new warrant article.
Huh.
Yeah. And I think it's it should be in your packet tonight. It's
Okay.
according to the ABCs of writing a warrant that we quite frankly didn't know about back
Yeah.
in December when we wrote ours. Well,
why don't
something
we-
to
that's-
contemplate.
I was gonna say.
That's worth further
I was gonna, that
clarity.
sounds
To
like,
be sure we understand, I understand what he's asking, and it does make some sense to the extent that
yeah.
it's practically doable, logistically doable is the thing.
Why
to
don't we do
explore.
some
Nail that down
skull work and
before
nail
we-
it on the warrant meeting?
Yeah.
See, this is why it's good to have meetings like that. When these issues come up, we can pay attention to them specifically. So if that won't crush you,
I found the material here. I had put it aside because we were gonna take this off the warrant, so I haven't read it.
If you have any questions.
I have read it, no, I've read it, it's a good package, so it's a
Sure.
good read, and it's worth you giving careful consideration.
let's find out
From
what,
here.
what we can do about it on the meeting of the 25th.
25th, yeah.
Excellent.
I'm all for that.
Thank you.
No problem, Jim. Thanks. All right. Any more public comment? Stop standing up so much. Okay, very good. Hearing none. We can, Yvonne, if you don't mind going forward. Very good.
Doing this on the fly, don't have anything, but
Wow, working without a net. I am impressed.
You have
Now,
it?
do we have stuff
We have
in
our,
front of us? Let's see how well you do.
Yeah, well, you remember.
Exactly.
We'll test you.
All right, carry on.
okay. As you know, we are required by the Department of Revenue to have a recertification done once every 3 years. And so once every 3 years, we hire consultants to come in and assist us with this task. Basically, the Department of Revenue audits all the functions of the assessor's office. And so we have some consultants come in and help us with our commercial property, because we have to form 2 types of appraisal for commercial property: personal property, which is a little more complicated, and then we have our cost. We have to have cost data, so we get that from Marshall and Swift. We have an additional advertising. We also have additional map work to do. So there's a variety of consultants that we ask to help us assist to pass our audit.
Okay.
In a nutshell. So we've asked again this year for $12,000. That is what we asked for the last time around 3 years ago. We spent about $10,000 of that, so there is a $2,000 balance to contribute to the 12. So you won't be raising 12, you'll actually only be raising about 10. Usually comes out of free cash. So that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions.
I have two, just so I understand.
Fire away.
So does this go into your operating budget, this 12,000, or this is a special financing which does therefore require the warrant article?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not part of your operating budget.
Not part of the
No.
operating.
It is a separate
not.
expense. Yeah, I assumed that.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a separate expense because it only occurs once
Every
every 3
3 years.
I
years.
understand.
And it is small, so.
So we put funding for that, comes out of free cash then? Is that how that
I would
typically
think so,
works
yeah.
in the article, warrant
Sure.
article?
Typically, that's how it works, yes.
Well, and the only reason I ask is how that works for the 1% for advisory, because if you think of the OPEB has a valuation, and that's a once every 3 year deal that is in the operating budget, and it's a challenge
what
for
you're saying, sure.
achieving the 1% guideline that's currently on the table. So I'm just trying to see how this is different than
Well,
that.
it might be interesting.
Something to explore.
Well, I was gonna say, it might be interesting to have a look at not now, because I mean, obviously, I think
I think we're
we
doing
received this fine, but at the end of the day, having a look at fully costed services over a 5-year horizon, right? Or an arbitrary number of year
Something to look at.
horizon,
Yeah.
to figure that in and have a look at what that is. So I agree, I think that's fine.
I only wanted to make one comment to that was, we've 0%ed this for 3 years. So if it was a part of our operating budget, if we had split it out over 3 years, it gone up 1%, 1%, 1%, we haven't changed it in 3 years.
Oh,
We're
I
asking for the same
Yeah.
amount, so.
No, it's just
Which is
it's a-
lovely. Thank you.
It's a 3-year bump.
So,
Comment is that this is a no-brainer. Legally, this is required. It's a
Yeah.
mandatory
Yeah.
expenditure. It has to be done. If we don't do it, we can't get our tax rate certified, we can't send out the tax bills, we'll run out of money.
it's the money engine, we can't do
So on
this.
and so on. So it is a no-brainer article.
Absolutely,
We need to have it. You're right to bring it forward.
and there was a placeholder here for this anyway, so we're all good.
We're all good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is superlative. I love it when this is the way the process is supposed to work. The overall general placeholder's in, then literally we adopt it, put it on the warrant, the details come in and we're finished. That's tremendous. That is textbook stuff, Yvonne, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move to adjourn. Oh, no, sorry. We
Oh, there's the,
we have, at 6:30, we have
That's too early.
our chiefs, but that's too early. We can accept your grant, yeah? If we, well, no, let's look at me speaking for the board. We can consider accepting the grant. If you wanted to move that up, we'd be happy to hear about that.
Well, yeah, give them a chance to explain to the voters what the grant is, why it's a good thing.
Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm putting him up in the hot seat. He's a great
we
performer.
wanna
He's done
give-
well for us over the years.
We want to give the chief credit for this grant.
Credit to the chief.
Yeah, so this is the SAFE grant. This is one of 3 smaller grants we've recently received that totals $3,725. Very simply, this grant is a grant we've received in the past, and it's for student awareness of fire education. So this includes some of the fire prevention efforts we have as part of the fire department open house and as part of the school visits.
Okay.
So this is again something that's been approved. I just need your signature on the contracts here so that we can submit this back to the state so that they can provide us with the funding.
Well done. Neil, you have never provided any shortage of grants and opportunities for us to expand our services in terms of depth and quality over the years. That's great. Thank you very much for that effort.
don't you think I should give him a kiss too?
You should give him a kiss. All right.
I move that we
I feel
accept-
special.
Accept the grant, authorize it to be expended for the purposes for which it was awarded, and number 3, that the chair be authorized to sign all necessary paperwork to carry out the grant.
I second.
All in favor? Aye, Neil, thank you very, very much. That is outstanding. All right,
How about warrant number 33?
warrant number 33.
Move to approve warrant number 33 in the amount of $63,032.62.
Second for discussion, any
Nope.
salient points
Nope.
to,
There's overtime in there that as a result of the snowstorm,
well, we're,
understandably so.
and in fact, this is a good opportunity to say thank you to our public safety heads as well for getting us through the storm in the areas that we did excel in, as well as we did. We're all very grateful. Town is safe, as usual.
That's terrific.
Yes, that was supposed to be a historic level storm, and we came through pretty good shape.
Thank God no power loss, right? This was tremendous. This was really good. Board of Selectmen worked very hard on that.
That's right.
We wanted to make sure there wasn't much power loss in town. Another goal achieved, gentlemen.
It was Peter who moved that there'd be no power.
He did.
I did my best, yeah.
We were right with him. We were right with him.
It's a safe grant.
Oh, excellent. And this is the one, I'm gonna sign this immediately. So that, this is,
Sign on like the third guy. There it is.
yeah. Donna's always good at giving the sign here tags.
You know, someday it'd be nice to summarize all the grants we've got in various
That'd be
departments,
great.
because it's,
Yeah.
it adds up.
It adds up huge.
There's a lot of effort to do
It
that,
adds up huge.
you know? Police department's done a few.
Sorry.
That's worth it, kids.
All right. We have knocked off a couple of things. Do we have, are there substantive discussion items on the deficit spending?
I move to approve deficit spending for snow and ice.
Second.
All in,
I have a question
Sure.
for Peter. How much was the cost of the last storm? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know.
On this warrant, there was pieces of it.
Yeah,
Have a sense of-
she had some notes, but I don't.
should have an
I don't know
after action
if they're-
report on that, you know, storms, what are
We-
their
we
all-in
had
cost for
10,000
reimbursement
left.
purposes.
We had 10,000 left before we went into a deficit.
Right.
Are we,
I asked for that information, I don't have it.
so I just want to know if we are in a deficit already, or whether this is just
I
anticipating
don't know.
future storms.
Oh. Interesting. Well, any action that needs
I
to be
think we
taken on
expect to
that?
be. I think there was, you know, last week there was, she gave us an email, said there was 10,000 left. I think we, roughly that. I think we've exceeded that over the weekend, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I saw that email, but I wasn't sure that we'd,
don't
I mean, I think it's probably a safe bet, but,
Well, my little groundhog nose says, spring has arrived. No more
So
snow.
we get 4 inches of snow this
yeah,
weekend.
but I was gonna say, don't bet on it yet.
You can always have spring snowstorms
That's right.
Indeed.
until May 9th.
All right, well, we are moved and seconded and with, for lack of substantive objection. If I call for a vote, are we all right? All in favor then? Aye.
In favor
All right.
How about
The
the,
deficit spending.
of what? Okay.
All in favor of what? What?
Well, I left the room for a minute.
how about the hazardous materials
Oh, let's do
reciprocal
that, that's
agreement?
fine.
Since we're still 10 minutes over.
Does Carol wanna come present something about?
Well, she was gonna come if anybody had any questions, but I could
Then we
certainly
do this
call
every
her
year.
and tell her not to come.
Yeah,
Absolutely
we
right.
do this every year.
Okay.
It's,
I'm gonna get in touch with her right now.
I would say, yeah, absolutely, move to sign and authorize the reciprocal hazardous materials agreement for 2013.
what this does, so that our voters know what we're doing, is that it provides for a hazardous waste pickup program that includes a number of communities. I
We
don't
can
know where
take
my
our-
copy of the agreement went. Oh, here it is.
Toxic wastes to our neighboring towns.
So we all take turns being the point of contact. We have an outfit that comes in and handles the stuff. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 communities, so it's a regional effort.
You want me to read them so people know what they are? I could whip through the list. We're in Ashland, Bellingham, Dover, Franklin, Holliston, Medfield, Milford, Norfolk, Sherborn, Walpole, and Rentham.
And it's,
Just looks like a good list.
it's a thing we've been doing for a number of years. It's all in the same form.
Excuse me. And, yeah, it's a good idea, it's a great program. So,
And we encourage people to take their hazardous waste and dispose of it
properly.
properly. This is the means to do it. Throwing it over the back fence is not what this is supposed to do.
Agreed.
Bring it to a professional carrier who will transport it to a safe disposal area.
All right,
So you moved, was it seconded?
it was
No.
seconded and
Okay.
explained, all in favor? Aye.
One signature or three?
It has place for one, and I
Just
got
one.
greedy, and went ahead and did it, sorry.
It's your job.
I suppose. The buck stops with me, I'm the one they're gonna sue. Right. We are,
Do you wanna do the only thing that's left, there's two things left.
well, Neil McPherson and the Fire Chief Search Committee,
How about
but
the,
you're missing people, aren't
Yeah,
you?
I wanna wait till 6:30.
Can do.
how about the Wildlife Management Committee?
I'm good with that. Carry on.
All right, on this one, let's find my list. A group of citizens came to me and wanted to create this committee, and here we are. And so several weeks ago, I proposed creating the committee. I worked with the two citizens who had come forward with this. We put together a charge which has been approved by the board. And then when the time came to consider nominations, the chair said, let's stop and advertise it, see what reaction we get. And we did get reaction. We did get a number of people who applied. So my original thinking of a 5-person committee, I would now say should be a 7-person committee. I want to expand it so we can include some of these new people who have come forward. But let me explain who I think should be on the committee, since this has been my initiative. I'll take the lead on it. The original citizen organizer was Dave Kaplan. He is new blood for the town. He's not one of those people who goes from committee to committee, so he's brand
New
new.
volunteers, good idea.
And I've been trying to explain to him what it's like to be on a committee in Sherborn, and he's brave enough to try. So I want to commend him for coming forward with this idea, putting together the charge, and helping organize the committee, and I think he should be on the committee. And as part of his efforts, he recruited Scott Blanchard to be on the committee. So there were two citizens at large that he brought forward. I had, working through Diane, reached out to Joe Shepard, the animal control officer, because I thought he had a lot of skill dealing with wildlife, with the management of wildlife, trapping, all of that kind of stuff. I also reached out to Chief Thompson, and Chief was good enough to agree. The Chief brings a perspective. He's been interested in hunting and discharge of firearms, I think was his article last year. So he has a obvious role in connection with this committee. Because a big chunk of the land involved here is town land. Some of it's conservation land, which is like 750 acres, and some of it's town forest land. I don't remember how many acres is in the town forest. I thought we should have someone from the Conservation Commission, and the one that I would like to bring forward is Bridget, because she has a degree in wildlife management, and because I think at the end of the day, somebody actually has to write this all down on a piece of paper. And with all the people who are on the committee, I think she'd probably be the one best able to prepare a physical document for everybody to look at. So I had suggested, I'm suggesting Bridget. Another candidate I want to bring forward is Dave Colleen. Dave is from the Town Forest Committee. The Town Forest is the other chunk of public land. So I think that he should be on the committee. And the last one is kind of open, but I thought from amongst the applicants, the one that looked like most knowledgeable in these things was Dan Tyler. He's a licensed hunter. He has been involved in setting up a program to supervise and possibly control deer population, beavers, coyote populations, and the like. He's also a firefighter and an EMT in Sherborn. So from among those, I thought he would round out the committee and make a total of 7. Those are...
No objection?
No, we had other, I don't, we have 2 others that were interested. I don't know anything about one of them. I know of the other, but I think Paul's grouping is well, carefully crafted, well thought out. One question would be on the, for instance, in the case of Bridget, would she be doing this as on a volunteer basis, or would this be part of her
Oh, this
duties?
is a volunteer committee.
So
Yeah,
we would expect that, and she's agreeable to that.
Right, that's not a
Yes,
charge,
but if
not a
she ends
chargeable
up being
event.
tasked with
Writing for the town, that's a different story.
writing a management plan,
Right.
I mean, here's the thing, we have committees, and committees can sit around and talk philosophy and policy and all of that. But what we actually need to have is a deliverable that's gonna be a well thought out document that's gonna stand up to state scrutiny
Right.
and to citizen scrutiny.
Right.
Because it's eventually gonna come back here, and people are gonna look at it, and they wanna read it, and they need something put before them. And what
Well,
impressed me about Bridget again is that she has written papers on what.
Right, and I think with
she
the
has
degree that you
completed.
described sure sounds valuable.
But
Oh,
if
yeah.
she's gonna be tasked with that we'd have to negotiate with her, see if we can get it to do it for free.
we would, I was gonna say, the only thing, once again, here's my open government stick in the mud. I'd like to make sure that we don't set a precedent that lots of other committees who have written specialized documents for either the purchase of equipment that's very technical and very critical, or planning for the use of town resources, or any number of other extremely technical, valuable, volunteer people who've made traffic plans, traffic safety plans, for example, these guys, and some other things in town forest, that we don't set a precedent that we're gonna pay somebody for work that is similar in scope and responsibility to what other people have already done as
And
volunteers.
so likewise, Joe
Very
would be
important.
doing it on a volunteer basis, is what we would imagine in this situation.
Yes.
Yeah, I would.
And the same with the chief and everybody else. We're not.
Right,
But I would agree that we would specifically put it to her that this is a non-paid thing, and if she bows out, then we're gonna need someone else from the Conservation Commission. We have another
That's
applicant there.
correct, yes.
okay.
We have to have representation from the Conservation Commission, because
Agreed.
there's 750 acres on it.
Totally agreed.
Trust.
No, I don't wanna, and again, I'm not trying to throw a fly in the ointment, but I do wanna make sure we do this consistently so that we have a happy, well-motivated, well-treated, equally valued group of volunteers.
And if I could, so do we expect to bring the group in at some point before they get too deep into it, just sort of discuss some of the things that they're likely to do?
What would I know about wildlife?
Well, I don't know, but
Yeah,
you
bring
know,
'em in,
versus
sounds
going down the
good.
road, let's go find a way to, reduce the population versus let's evaluate whether the population needs to be reduced. This is coming from a guy that,
We would, I think,
I kill mosquitoes and flies, but that's about it.
I would
so.
hope that the,
Well, there's coyotes,
I understand
there's
that.
beavers,
Yeah.
there's deer that
There's-
come to mind as pressing issues for the community.
And-
There may be others.
Right.
I don't mean to exclude them.
this we'll find out, well, this is how you
This
find
is
out
how we
if this
find
is a
out if those are
successful
problems that
committee,
need solving.
right?
Right.
That they'll come back with a plan to
All right,
control
well, I
mice
just-
and only mice, then we know that we gotta do this again.
Okay.
So, I have no objection, are we voted in,
I think we're gonna,
That was a motion.
all right,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Great, good choice.
With the caveat that I've agreed to with the.
Oh, yeah, no, I think
I
that,
guess there was no public
No
comment
discussion?
before that vote? He had his hand up, I had my hand up, and you took a vote?
well, we did take the vote, but we'll happily hear you. I mean, I don't know why anybody'd be upset, but carry on.
No, it's too late now.
No, it's good to, I still think we should hear you. I mean, if you raise something terrible, we've re-voted some other stuff. I mean, but I don't,
Well, I had two comments. First off, I know that Alex Dowse was part of the original deer management Lyme program. I know he had put his name in for it. He's unable to be here tonight. He's on the Conservation Commission. He's a large landowner in the town. He's well aware what the issues are as far as wildlife. So I was going to say, I would hope that you would consider him as far as someone with conservation. Now, as a member of the Conservation Commission, we just had a meeting this past Thursday, and the agent has stated numerous times now that things have changed. We all know she just had a child. Things have changed, and she can only work 8 to 4. So as far as considering, you want someone from conservation, and the third point on that is, you mentioned one female and all the other guys can write too.
all right, Dave, wisdom, you're welcome. Wisdom to add, sir. Oh, you're not Dave, you're Sean, the kid, I got that. Sorry about that. Now I don't know who's gonna be madder at me. I don't know what I've just done there,
You might
folks.
find out in a little while.
This is complicated today, folks. All
I was
right,
also
you,
gonna-
Colleen.
I
what?
was gonna point out that there's some pretty large landowners that absolutely dwarf, if you combine a couple of them, the land that Sherborn has, that is gonna be huntable. Maybe they should be involved.
That's true. I mean, my only answer to that would be,
They can do it right now.
I was gonna say, the only answer I would be having for that is for us to begin having a look at this as town properties, that we need to come together with a committee to authorize this to happen on town properties. People on their own properties can do exactly what they wanna do already.
Right, they're already
You know.
free to do whatever they want on their own property.
So I think that, well, you're correct. We'll see what the town policy comes up looking like.
Okay.
But I appreciate that. No, it's all good. Nancy Hess on animal management.
It's not on animal, it's on asking people who don't live in Sherborn to volunteer their time on Sherborn committees. I think that's a bit of a stretch, especially when it's a paid employee, to ask them to do extra hours without pay. So
They
I
would
would
certainly
look for
refuse.
I would look for someone who is vested in the town and
It's a good point, and I think as we go forward, people may evince a desire not to do it, at which point we will pay attention and not break their arms to do
but
it.
we shouldn't feel that they're not cooperative because they say no thank you.
Absolutely.
Well taken. All right. Now we are a little past Neil's time, and unless there's anything more critical, I think we could give Neil his allotted time. At 6:30 is the traffic safety and public safety heads, or, no, this is Fire Chief Search Committee. At least I got your name right, Neil.
Yes, thank you.
You should feel good about that one.
So I want to start by recognizing the members of the Fire Chief Selection Committee, which include myself, Police Chief Richard Thompson, Lieutenant Josh Buckler. We have Fred Abdellahed, who represents personnel. We have Ron Arrigo, who is not here tonight, Frank Jenkins, and Mark Roach. So the majority of the committee is here, and I want to just emphasize, we did meet this week, and I welcome them, obviously, although I'm up here speaking to add additional comments and thoughts as we go through this. So the reason that we're here tonight is to talk about the Fire Chief Selection Committee. As I've said in the past, I was willing to come back in the acting capacity. That window was shutting for me in terms of my ability to continue in this role. Therefore, we need to continue to move this process forward. As you know, before we brought forth a candidate, and then things did not work out in terms of being able to sign up that candidate. So as we sit tonight, we need to talk about what does the process look like going forward. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page, and we can talk about lessons certainly learned as a result of this process as well. So do you have feedback or comments for the committee? And then we can tell you what we discussed when we met on February 6th and some of the recommendations that we have.
Unless the selectmen have any hard and fast, A, knowledge of what you're doing, and B, opinions about it, I think we'd be well served to hear from you.
Listen and learn, I think,
Exactly
is the,
right.
yeah,
I think that'd be important,
two
so
questions,
please
but I'd rather hear you first.
tell us what your what you think.
Okay, well, the collective committee thinks at this point in time, it would be prudent to go ahead and re-advertise the position, right,
Okay.
for a period of 2 weeks. Obviously, we already have a job description. One of the things that we want to do is make it crystal clear that the pay range for this position is $75,000 to $85,000, period. Last time, we had a couple candidates who asked what the pay range was. The vast majority did not. When it comes to the contract for the fire chief, although I know we can't get into all of the specifics, I do
Could we
think it
lay
would
out
be
as many as
important
possible?
that we lay out what the contract will likely look like, right? Because I think that was part of the issue with this last go-around.
I can
Was that there-
testify to that personally. It was very difficult.
Right, so we don't want to go ahead and go through this process again to find out that
Right.
the candidate gets a contract and the candidate says, no way, no how, this this contract is not sufficient and there's certain provisions here. Let's have the conversation up front. Let's put everything on the table to the best of our ability, understanding that we'll be negotiating, but we think it's very important that we have some basic contract which will look somewhat like what is offered at the end of the day, excluding the financial numbers, and things that can't be determined upfront.
Might I, in a parenthetical interjection, humbly request some red lines, whether they're pro forma and could be exceeded for various reasons. Excellence in a candidate, a set of performance criteria, a set of skills that are highly desirable, but to set up the four corners of where the maneuvering room for negotiation is. The circumstance being too open leads to I think too much latitude. And I was the one who did that last process, and I will freely admit that became very difficult for me to work with a candidate who was motivated, who wanted to do the job, who felt he was worth it. When I wasn't able to respond hard and fast, no, I cannot do that, or I don't want to do that because you're a great candidate and I want this to work. There was too much latitude, and I'll report that I did the best I could, but it would help me or anyone else. I mean, I'm hoping it's somebody else, but would help somebody to respond much more definitively up front to say, wow, it's not because we don't value you, but this is the line. This is all the committee is going to approve, so that there's not that independent leeway. And that's just a suggestion, honestly.
So you're saying you support having a standard contract?
Yeah.
All right.
And you guys can define what you feel is appropriate leeway
Yeah.
in some numbers or some allowances, some bennies, what somebody's going to get. But definitely to have an idea that, okay, this is as much as we go, and we don't think anything less than this is fair, and to have an active, a proactive role in the negotiation as the framers, right, of the thing that's being sold.
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty good boilerplate at this point, and there's so many variables
We
that
learned a
you can
lot.
play with.
We learned a
So
lot last time.
I think that's, you leave the
When you
variables
say-
open, but you
say
got the
have a
boilerplate.
You have a
Well-
boilerplate for this particular job, or you have a boilerplate for
Well,
a generic boilerplate?
it's
No,
my
this-
interpretation that we have a contract that, that we work through that gives you
This
a pretty
job,
good framework of what all the pieces of the puzzle are. And then those variables can be left blank. I mean, and here's how it works. I would be
Yeah,
comfortable
the
with that.
last-
So
But
maybe
the
that's
last
just me.
candidate, presented 3 or 4 alternate contracts from other towns and other positions, and ours evolved in some ways to meet some of those criteria. So I think that the 80% right down the fairway kind of necessities, and I think Neil's seen this as it evolved too, the 80% sort of down the middle of the fairway necessities for the contract are kind of boilerplate.
Yeah, I mean, and we got to pretty comfortable with what we had on that contract, other than filling in the blanks, I think that's,
And that's where the difficulty came, was what was in the blanks.
yeah, so, that provides people a framework.
But anyway, I didn't mean to hijack the conversation, but I thought I'd add areas where I had not done well in this process. I did with good faith and thought we tried, but I thought I'd feed back to you guys so that you'd have that experience to go forward with. And I think
And you worked hard at it, there's no
I did
question,
my
you
best.
worked
I
hard at
certainly-
it.
I certainly
And the
tried.
process is clearly difficult, because he's out there one-on-one with the individual, and then he's gotta come back to us to kinda say, well, what does mommy and daddy think, and that's not easy.
So to speak. Well, Dad,
Just,
so frightening picture, but go ahead.
I'm
Along
good
those-
with the prototype contracts,
Yeah.
we're
Good.
in agreement.
Yeah.
Excellent.
although I did not sit in any of the executive session meetings, one of the things that I want to point out is I know that there was a contract that eventually you agreed to, and I did not see it, so I'll be clear about that. It was my understanding, though, we started out with a pretty standard contract, and I understand our position, which is you want to protect the town. But on the flip side, what I would suggest to you is, based upon some feedback I got, that the contract went from a very standard contract to something very different. And I just want to point out that as that contract goes very far in a different direction, that it's much more difficult to attract qualified candidates for that. So as part of this, I would just suggest that we had a very qualified candidate who could have done this job, right? But the other piece of this was not just about the financial element, it was about the contract. And I understand that every individual is different, but I just want to point out, just as a police chief signs a pretty standard contract,
Right.
we need to protect the town, but we also need to give the candidate some protections too. If they're going and leaving a good job to come to the town of Sherborn, no one's going to come here for a one-year contract. You know, there has to be things like just cause. You guys ultimately make these decisions, but it's got to be a meaningful contract. So if they come over here, like again, we want to get a good person. We don't want to go through this every year. So I understand we need some protections here, but I think there's also some protections here. And my impression was that we swung a little too far to the left in
And
terms of
protected
protecting the
ourselves too much,
town.
yeah.
And unfortunately, that alienated possibly a very good candidate.
I couldn't agree more, and that is really putting a little bit more substance on my comment before about the four corners that don't move. You know, you got to agree what's the risk of the town. In this case, I mean, you brought it up. So the idea of what constitutes a just dismissal in terms of a legal risk to the town, I mean, can somebody sue us to pieces forever after working here 3 months, making a specious claim, suing us to pieces and going away to cost us $1 million, versus the opposite end of the spectrum that protects us to fare thee well and leaves the candidate hanging out there. So those are the kinds of, I'm glad you brought that up, those are the kinds of hard and fast, kinds of unchangeable parts that need to be out there. You know, so you mess around with an allowance here and there, or you mess around with dates or times or in a vacation thing or some accrued benefit, that's one thing. But having the unmovable iron plates of what the contract specifies, I think are you know, your responsibility to set up for whoever negotiates this and say, you don't have that to sell. There's just no movement there. And I think that that's fair enough. And you guys have got enough subject matter expertise, command structure expertise to know what those issues really are. And they should be defined by you. Not that you didn't before, it's just that we hadn't had this discussion before. And I think it's great that we're doing it now so that we don't go through the same process again.
So to the extent we come up with the boilerplate that we're comfortable having as a public document out there, and you guys get to look at it first and come back and say, geez, you know, we ought to reconsider
they'll give
that
us one.
particular thing. You know, I think that would be a valuable exercise before we then go out and distribute it to potential candidates. I think that makes
Critical.
sense to me, you know, because you have concerns sitting in that chair that person will ultimately sit in, and I appreciate, you know, I think we appreciate that you're reflecting those concerns, you know, so.
Yeah, and that's great. This is a huge improvement on where we started from before, I can tell you.
Right. The other point I would just say is, one thing is, Tommy, you were put in a position where you had to negotiate this, right, going back and forth. And clearly, one of the things we learned is this process took 3 months.
Yeah.
And obviously a less efficient process. So one of the other recommendations we had moving forward was, you know, it's not really fair to throw this on you, Tom, who was stepping forward to do this, but is it town council and or is it, you know,
Labor
town
council
administrator
or
or someone
somebody,
else who
sure.
negotiates this?
Yes,
who-
absolutely.
Who can
Right.
cut to the chase more quickly. And I look at the
TA.
town administrator, that was a very prompt process. This took 3 months
It should
before
be
we
the-
found out it wasn't gonna work.
If you were to ask me, my answer would be the town administrator as the point guy, informed by, working with and behind the search committee. Should make the criteria for what needs to be done. The TA should have the authority to go forward and make those negotiations as he does with every other collective bargaining unit and contracted person. That's the idea here, is to bring that TA into the center of that process for every such negotiation.
I would just add to that,
Except-
Mr. Chairman, that you should definitely have some advice from Labor Council.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's strictly, it's a matter of knowing the content of contracts.
Absolutely.
And I'm not suggesting the soon-to-be town administrator is not a professional and hasn't done contract negotiations, but there's a
We
lot
would
of minutia
expect-
involved.
We would expect that the town administrator ought to know what questions should be asked by Labor Council, and we certainly, as the policy board, will make certain that there is an overarching policy mandate that any legal aspects of these negotiations be vetted by Labor Council so that the TA or anybody else, that myself included, doesn't put us in a disadvantageous position with regard to our responsibilities concerning labor law, whether it's strong chief statute, whether it's just fair wages, whether it's anything else, that we make sure that that happens. You gotta understand that when we're looking to empower the TA to do this stuff, we're not looking to empower the TA stupidly. We want this to be professionally run so that those questions that you've just asked we'll have set up front, so that there's no possibility of slippage in this, you know. And again, I can testify to where there was slippage in this very area, that it's critically important to nail it down with policy, procedure, and structure. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, you did use town council though, didn't you?
Yeah, we did, but in terms of the way the thing was structured, I mean, when we look at now having the TA backed by Labor Council as the point for this, with the committee advising, is a much stronger structure, right? I was very cognizant of legal issues and used town council a lot. I have a lot of emails back and forth qualifying all these issues. But the point is well taken, that this should be a predefined structure and be done professionally. You know, at the end of the day, I'm an elected volunteer. I may be really smart and I may be very well-meaning, but at the end of the day, this is transforming this into a process of a professional talking to a professional, being guided by subject matter experts. You can't beat that. I just don't see any way to do better than that. And that endeth my stump speech for tonight.
Yeah, that's good. Just kidding.
You of all people,
You know
kidding
what?
me,
Can
thinking
I
about
give a
this?
little levity to the
Yeah,
evening?
sure, absolutely, throw him a kiss.
You ever watch those Austin Powers movies? When he was talking to his son, he does zip it, zip it. Well, I have a new take on that.
Uh-oh,
Kink
uh-oh,
it, kink it.
I'm gonna get
Snip
zipped.
it.
Oh, no! Here you go. No, that's okay, I got lifesavers in the room.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
snip me, you can
Yeah,
snip
just
me.
kidding.
Hey, you know, this is being televised.
Yeah, I know.
He's a mean-spirited
I
guy,
like to
folks.
throw a joke in there.
Everything you
but I
do
can-
can be held against you.
Yeah, yeah. Can I ask a couple of questions then?
Sure.
So what level of networking are you likely to do? You know, that you know folks in other towns, or somebody knows folks in other towns, or folks know folks in other towns that are, you know, besides the advertising, waiting for what comes in. To what degree do we do that? I know, you know, I have friends in other towns that maybe are worth saying, hey, you know, we're looking, do you have somebody who might be interested, and here's the nature of the beast, and, you know, what does your guy get right now, and that sort of thing.
So I'd just say high level, that numerous members on the committee know of people who might be interested in this position. And I've also received some calls from individuals who asked questions about it. So we'll continue to network to the best of our ability,
Yeah,
but we want to cast a wider net,
yeah.
right, in terms of looking at the candidate pool.
Right, right. And you expect to bring, hopefully this time, more than one candidate to the table is an objective
We
that
would
we
hope.
hope would
That would be a
be
good thing.
achieved, right?
I think it will help. I want to be clear, though. We feel very strongly we brought a very qualified candidate, the most qualified candidate, to the table for you.
Totally respect that
Well,
and
So I
appreciate
don't want to
it.
confuse
The flaw
quality
wasn't in
versus
the candidate.
quality.
No.
The flaw wasn't in the candidate. At the end of the day, just a single candidate scenario has got its pitfalls,
Drawbacks,
right?
yes.
Even with a greatly strong candidate and a good process, you still don't have all the kind of degrees of freedom that you'd have in a larger pool. That is not to say a group of 5 incredibly underqualified, gnarly candidates is any better than one real strong one.
Yeah.
So,
that's the boat we were in too, was that we had 20 some odd candidates that we interviewed. We ended up with one that we felt comfortable being chief. So
right.
it was where we were.
Which is not to be faulted, right? I mean, we all agreed when you guys came in front of us and said, geez, here we have this one candidate situation, what do you guys think? And instead of saying, you know, that's just too fraught with a mess and it can't end well, we said, geez, we're really hopeful. What a great candidate. Let's go forward. So I think that in the midst of great intentions, don't put your scissors away.
Oh, I saw you moved your bag a little
I
further
did,
away.
I moved this thing out of here, man.
All right, I'll put it
Outside.
away.
Actually, I'm gonna put a
I'll
bullet
put
in
away.
it and blow us both out.
I'll give you a kiss.
Oh,
How's
he
that?
kissed me, that's great.
That's good.
But so anyway, I think there's a balance there, right? And that's why I'm very glad.
Yeah, and then, the past is the past, but that, there's two to tango in that exercise, that process. And so, I would say the town tried its hardest and it just didn't work out, move on. But I appreciate that you brought the best person to the thing. It's just
He was.
better knowledge of the expectations of what the deal is, simplifies things a little bit, I'd say.
Definitely. We'll simplify the things.
So then, if we're in agreement and there's no other comments from the committee,
When do you expect the town administrator to be on board?
No later than March 4th. The last weekend of February is school vacation. He has kids. I'd rather suspect that he's gonna be out with them. It was the best deal we could make with him, and I think it's not only likely, but absolutely set in stone that will be it, so I'll listen to you. Thank you.
So you'll communicate to him that we're working, and we will probably, by the time he comes on board, be well into the process of.
Yeah, he's in general terms already aware that these things are going on.
Good.
I know that Don has talked to him. I've talked to him a number of times to keep him in general, generally up to date. I think he's still handling his current gig, but I think he'll come up to speed fast, and he's eager to be involved.
And one of the best fire chiefs I've ever known, one of the best. Neil, you have you turn into a pumpkin at some point, or you're hoping to turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
So there's an end game that we need to make sure we're ready for.
I think he said that was 6 months ago.
exactly.
I think it was more like a year, but I'm not going to split hairs here. I'm grateful that he's here.
With all seriousness, I mean, by
Yeah,
the end of this fiscal
seriously.
year,
Okay.
I will be going back into retirement. I hope it's sooner than the end of the fiscal year,
Right.
so that we can move
Because I heard
forward.
May 1st was something you'd like to see.
There's a lot of things I'd like to see.
Okay.
Well, this is, again, whatever we can do to foster the process, let us know.
Okay, so we're gonna move forward then with the posting and getting that out in the next week or so, and we appreciate your support. And I'd ask again that we get a copy of what we think that contract will be. We'll look at the standard contract and make recommendations to you, so that as we move forward to the next phase of interviews, we're able to give people specifically the contract, here's what it's gonna look like, and make sure that we're upfront with people before we go to that next step. We're also gonna try to do a thorough job, but make sure that we do it in an expeditious fashion.
It's great that we have the committee back and everybody ready, willing, and able to go. We're fortunate to have that.
Grateful you guys are willing to take another crack.
Just, if I could make a couple of comments. We're all committed to a full-time fire chief. I'm not sure that advisory is committed to a full-time fire chief. Because a member of advisory came by and said, when are we gonna make the case for a full-time fire chief? And I thought we've been doing that for the last 2 or 3 years. I believe the budget that that you submitted includes the full-time fire chief, or does not include the full-time fire chief?
The most recent version includes the full-time fire chief.
Right.
Great.
Which is the budget that we approved, I think, at Selectmen's desk. Did we not approve?
Correct.
It's the second version. The first
Right.
version did not include it because you're in
Right.
contract
We
negotiations.
did.
The second version
Right.
does include it that you've approved, yes.
Great, so that's the place to go forward. Advisory does have a Board of Selectmen approved budget for the fire department, including a full-time chief.
He presented it the other night.
Yeah, but
Yes, and I would just say to you
there
that,
shouldn't be any confusion there.
but technically, the Board of Selectmen has not come to advisory telling them and helping to make the case. I tried to do that this week, but I think it's still important.
And I was
This
there
is
to
something we
back
have
him
to
up.
do, and I want to thank Peter, because Peter did come to support us.
Amen.
But I'm not sure, as you pointed out, Paul, that the case has fully been discussed with advisory, or at least they feel that that has not been discussed with them. So yes, it's been an ongoing process, but I think additional dialogue is warranted, and
I want to make sure that the Board of Selectmen can amplify, support, reiterate, and do what we can to make clearer the needs of our public safety community as voiced by our current chief and by the command structure of the fire department itself. The decision to have a full-time chief, I think, is something the Board of Selectmen is looking to support in our public safety department trying to make our town safer, better run, better administered. I would like to make sure that people understand that the Board of Selectmen, in making policies for a safer town, will listen to our subject matter experts, who are the people who do that job. So when we respond to a need for this, it's us being on an administrative level, saying something policy-wise to say, this is what our people tell us we need. I'm not gonna fight with the chief about whether or not we need a particular number of cops to keep the town safe, or with the fire chief as to whether or not we need a particular command structure to keep our town safe. I'm willing to do that, and I'm sure the Board of Selectmen is also willing to support you in every way. I just wanna make sure that there's no confusion about who makes this decision. We advocate for you on this, and I think that if it's
Well, what I
Up
was
to that.
leading up to with this line was that we're meeting with advisory on
Yeah.
March 12th.
we are.
And I wonder if we can expand our agenda, our advisory agenda, our agenda for the meeting with advisory, to include the discussion of the full-time chief, make that a
Yeah.
specific item.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
let's
Have some
spend
subject matter
10 or
experts there.
15, maybe if we can have some members of the search committee there,
So we can be united in saying this.
all make the case together as a team.
I think young Dave had a question there. Go for it, sir.
Well, in reference to that entire long discussion you just had, you guys just absolutely indicated that you're not 100% on board with it.
Why would you say that?
That's what it sounded like to me.
Not at all. I'm trying to.
Have you gone to advisory with a 3-0 vote that you support a full-time fire chief?
We've done that.
We
We
have
made
voted.
that point.
Didn't sound
We
like,
made
the
that
statement
point.
you just made did not
Then
sound like that.
Let me say,
It
I'm
sounded
sorry
like
you
you kind of
didn't.
support the people here, but
Not at all. What I was doing is providing due deference to our public safety command structure, who believes this is important. The Board of Selectmen also believes it's important and will go to advisory and make that case. What we need to do here, though, is separate, because there's been some confusion in the past about the role of the Board of Selectmen having too much influence over what happens in town departments. The Board of Selectmen is here to support what the town departments believe is correct and right to keep our town safe and properly run. We're not here to put our fingers in what we think a chief ought to be. We're here to talk to firefighters and the command structure to say, what do you need in order to keep our town safe and our people healthy? That's what I meant.
so the
Board of Selectmen is,
Board of Selectmen backs a full-time fire chief.
we've said that
We-
publicly
we have
many
And the
times.
budget
We have
includes
voted
that.
it.
We voted a budget
Voted
that
it.
pays for
Okay.
it. So please don't, I'd like everybody listening, so that nobody else has that misapprehension, Sean, that for some reason, that we're waffling on something. Untrue. We voted a budget to pay for a full-time fire chief. We're in front of advisory to tell them that we believe it's the right thing to do. Why? Because our people who save lives and put out fires say they need it.
Okay.
That's the right reason for us to get behind it. The wrong reason would be because we think it's a good idea too. We do because you guys do. I'm not a firefighter,
That's fine.
right?
It was really vague the way it was said. And
Not vague
it's
anymore.
easier to just say, the 3 people at that desk support the decision and the budget.
But it's not
and we're
vague
going
in-
to advisory to go to bat for that.
Not vague anymore, right?
No.
Good.
Perhaps if there's anybody out there like that, I would move that we reaffirm and ratify and confirm and
Didn't I just do that?
Duplicate.
Man, I was talking too much to begin with.
Well, I think the key selling point at advisory the other night, so I don't know where their confusion may lie, but nonetheless,
Money.
the net increase to get a full-time fire chief, based on the fees that are coming in addition and cost
Not that much
shifting and so,
money.
it's like $20,000.
22 grand, right?
Yeah, it's, and you get, and so then they said, well, how many hours are we talking about? And then, you know, Neil's at 24 hours or whatever it is, and this would be full-time, so he said 16 hours net increase. And so then I said, well, Neil, how many hours did you work over the weekend here? And he wouldn't put a number on it, but it was a lot, and there was more than 24 hours. And so,
Well, it's
you know, for 20 grand, you get a lot.
Such a deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, Guy, I think we beat that one to death with a stick.
Okay, great, thank you, and certainly thank you to the committee for all their hard work.
Yes.
Absolutely, guys, thank you very much. That is incredibly important.
can we segue into,
Well, no, the chief made a pointing there.
Well, I didn't want the fire chief to leave his post. Gonna talk
None of us wanted to leave his post, but he says he's gonna. All right, so should we just segue into the traffic safety deal? Is that what I'm hearing from you guys? Being integral parts of both essential organizations.
Ed, I dragged you a chair from.
Mr. Wagner, sir.
While you're both up there, I think the community owes all three of you
Yeah.
a vote of thanks for the
Storm management.
recent storm, the way we came through it with everything intact. Well done to all of you.
Bravo. Super.
I'd like to reinforce again, just the people, it's not just us, but of course the department.
Absolutely.
That really kicked in this
Teams.
weekend. They worked a lot of hours, through
Yeah.
some very difficult, shall we say, conditions.
Yeah.
And the town pulled through, so the town employees did a great job.
I've heard a lot of citizens saying good things
Good.
compared to Hurricane Irene with no
Let's
power.
let's not go there.
This was
Enough power.
wonderful.
Enough.
And just so you know, Diane and Jeannie Guthrie were critical in helping us out with some of the notifications and making some adjustments to the town website. So we certainly appreciate their help as usual. Of course, neither one of them brought us any cookies or anything, so.
Well,
Oh, guys? All right.
Chairman,
Sir,
on the storm, did anyone lose power in Sherborn?
I
know
think one person lost power for 7 minutes.
Yeah, we had one reported power outage through Enstar, and I want to say it was for maybe an hour.
Okay,
Yeah, it was absolutely exemplary.
may all our storms be like that.
Indeed, indeed.
I'd like to think it wasn't just an accident. I mean, we have pressed them to do tree trimming. We have pressed them to replace old transformers. We did have them replace some wires in town with stronger wires rather than all these double, triple spliced lines. We had good communications, much better communications with Enstar, because I got these reports that they had put more people on, and I think one of the chief, maybe the blue chief was in touch with them, or
Yes.
the red chief. It's hard to, it was a team effort, but you all had better communications, it felt like, with Enstar, so Enstar had stepped up
Yeah.
more than they had in prior storms.
on top of that,
Their web portal was, I mean,
Was
dummy,
good?
it was dummy proof, that's what I'll say.
the Board of Selectmen also ritually sacrificed
that was
4
new this
goats
time, the web portal?
to make sure the weather
tweaked it?
stayed good.
They've addressed some past flaws, I'll say.
All right, well, we kick this off. We have one comment.
Just a quick comment from a resident on Ivy Lane. I must say, after going through Hurricane Sandy and being without power for 4 days, not being able to get out of our driveway because of a tree down and wire,
Yeah.
to see the police come through the neighborhood on multiple occasions was very comforting. And I thank you, Chief, for organizing that.
They arrested any tree that was even thinking of coming down.
Jim, did you
It's
hear
very
me
proactive.
flying by on the snowmobile?
I didn't realize
That was-
that
I-
was you until I saw an email.
I saw the email that the chief was out there snow machining.
Believe it or not, we had Sergeant Headstone responding to some of the less critical calls on the snowmobile at one point. The only way we could get down driveways.
That's great.
Yeah, may our luck continue.
Indeed, from your lips to God's ear. All right, guys,
Snow coming.
let's keep ourselves on track and on time if we are able to. And so carry on, the three of you. The title of our agenda item here is a public safety discussion with our 3 public safety heads and the traffic safety committee. So I just thought I'd prime the pump there for you
The
guys.
first time I've seen them speechless.
I know, I'm trying to work with you guys, all right? Play a little more of the overture so that we can.
It'll be the Mo Larry Curly show in a second.
There you
I
go.
thought that's what we had up here.
Yeah.
Indeed, we're busy kissing each other too.
First of all, I just wanted to mention that Brad Van Brunt, who is the Traffic Safety Committee Chair, could not be available. There was a communication mix-up on the date of the meeting or the discussion. Because I felt strongly that this was a pressing discussion, I decided to just move forward with some of the concerns that we've had over the last few storms. And to be perfectly clear, from the police department's perspective, we've shared these concerns with Ed Wagner, and Ed, as far as I'm concerned, has made every effort to address concerns that we've shared. Having said that, I had a few residents, one resident that sits on the Traffic Safety Committee, share a particular, or a few particular concerns regarding one of the most recent snowstorms, not the blizzard, and the fact that, number one, the Pine Hill Road had not been plowed, and there were buses that were going up the road to drop off students, which is clearly a safety issue. I had some concerns as the chief. My personnel have to have the driveway plowed properly in order for us to respond to emergency situations. So you're aware, during snowstorms, snow emergencies, I order my personnel to go into reactive mode. I certainly don't want the officers driving off the road and incurring injury or damaging property. So in order for us to respond to emergencies, which we get during snowstorms, we have to make certain that the driveway leading to the rear of the station and the driveway leading away from the front of the station are clear early and often. And that was not the case during a few of the storms. Additionally, Lieutenant Bento had responded to several motor vehicles off the road at the corner of Coolidge Street and Speen Street during rush hour. And he immediately requested a CM&D vehicle to include a plow and or a sander to come to his location. Ultimately, it took approximately an hour for a CM&D employee with the appropriate equipment to show up to assist Lieutenant Bento. And frankly, that just can't happen.
I'm with you. I want to make sure that the understanding of how this is happening and what the real issue here is. When I go through some of the materials here, I'm just asking you a little ahead of time. You're going to get to some of the core issues here as to why this is happening, because I know that Director Wagner is working extremely hard against some hard circumstances to make this circumstance work very well.
Right.
And I think that the text of what you guys are getting on about is a little more pointed than just the fact that these things aren't getting plowed out. There's something more in what you're saying. I just want people who are listening to understand that there's a point here that's not being directed just in the fact that some more plowing needs to be done.
Well, it's a little troubling as the police chief to have residents approach me and share that certain CM&D employees are pointing fingers at the police department and sharing that it's the police department's responsibility to notify CM&D when there's a predicted snowstorm. I think that's outrageous. My family has handled snow plowing for 25 plus years, and I don't know of any time that my father in particular hasn't been prepared for a snowstorm. And I'd like to think that our CM&D employees are professionals. They're familiar with the community. They know the choke points in town. They know where certain intersections are going to freeze up. They've been here long enough to understand and appreciate what their role is. So it's difficult to assume blame, I guess, for a job that really isn't the police department's job.
Well, that's understood. That's understood. I guess that the issues here so that it isn't the case that Ed's coming under the gun for this, but there are systemic problems in how things are being executed, both for the fire department and for the police department and for the town in general. There's some clear assignation of why this is happening and how it's happening, so that this doesn't wind up being a sort of amorphous discussion with no point. Because that way it puts Ed at the corner of the table. Everybody turns to Ed and says, "Go plow stuff, man. What's wrong with you?" Right? That's not the point here. And I want to make sure that we have a look at what we're doing.
Sure. Just high level, I think the first point becomes, obviously, we need to have the recognition that the issues exist, and I shared with you some examples where the fire station has not been treated, and that seems to be has been an ongoing issue over the years. And number two, I think, obviously, as Ed is working on some of these issues, he's going to need the support. And by the way, maybe there's some changes that may need to be made or policy or whatever at CMD, and I think that's important that as you hear these, there's now a recognition that maybe something has to be done differently, whether it's policy or whatever, so that we can achieve this, or resources, so we don't have these situations. Otherwise, we find ourselves potentially exposing the town to greater liability.
So let me grab the Jeep by the bumper and yank on it out of the muddy pit that it's in. There are some issues that need to be sorted out internally in the operation of some of our town departments concerning plowing and taking care of properties and situations in town that you, public safety officials, believe create liabilities for the town. Director Wagner is working on that, and in some of this material here, I see an implicit request that the Board of Selectmen get the town administrator involved to make an investigation as to why these things are happening with such predictability, and to find out what road we can take to correct these issues, because clearly it's not being, it's not lending itself to a quick and easy fix. I know Ed works really hard to get this stuff done. There are certain impediments in the way, and that you're asking, and please tell me, it just seems like we're stalled a little bit and it's uncomfortable. So what I'm hearing is, from seeing this, that you're asking us to get involved, to figure out why these things are happening, and to assist Ed in any way that we can, through the town administrator or whatever appropriate authorities we can utilize, to make sure that these conditions, which concern you, and you are hearing from the community about with regard to their preparedness, and I also got phone calls from individuals as well, that I told you about. So is that what you're asking for? And that way we can go to the Board of Selectmen. I think that we would need to have a very short discussion here, but I want to make sure that I'm getting to what you guys want without leaving you on the hot spot of having to stand up and start throwing lightning bolts,
I think
which would be cool, but.
I also was included in the fire chief's emails, and there were some issues at Woodhaven, which is critical, not just for fire rescue, but for the police, because typically.
Well, it's our schools, it's our fire rescue, these are critical things.
Yeah, but no offense to fire rescue, typically we'll get to an emergency call before the fire rescue will, so in order for us.
This is the red chief, blue chief.
Now he's talking.
The red chief, blue chief thing, we're not getting into. Okay.
It is what it is, but it's unsafe for us to walk down an icy, untreated walkway to provide medical assistance to an elderly resident.
Getting sued by a cop is a bad thing.
Yeah,
You
they
don't,
carry
you
guns.
don't want this.
Can I ask a
These
question?
guys.
Can I just get a little clarity? Is it,
You then him, yeah.
oh, well.
No, good, select and go.
Well, is it fair to say, reading the email streams and the documents provided, that some or many or most, or that's what I'm looking for, of the incidents that were described and some of these that you're describing happened in Ed's absence, because Ed has been dealing with a variety of personal issues, as we all know, most of which seem to have happened when we had a snowstorm. So is that a fair statement, that he wasn't there?
The plowing stuff definitely happened during the snowstorm. I can testify.
No. Well, Ed's personal, the fact that things that pulled that away, I'm treading carefully, but I just want to understand.
I think that's a fair statement.
If that's a fair statement.
Factually speaking, the situations that I brought forth.
Because otherwise, one could, step back, not knowing all of the details, would say, well, do we have a management issue here? Do we have a personnel issue? Do we have,
The answer
all
to
of
that
the above?
question is no.
Well, but my question was two-pronged. so-
Absolutely not. It didn't start now.
Let's keep the discussion here for the moment.
All right, well,
All right,
I'm just
because
trying to
this
get
is,
a little background, that's all, put it in perspective.
Well, I'm interpreting this, and just so that we don't get into a large public debate, I'm interpreting this appearance before the Board of Selectmen as a request from 3 department heads for the Board of Selectmen to consider an issue they brought before us. I really don't want to open it up to a large discussion. With all due respect, I understand there's a lot of people feel one way or another about
Yeah,
this.
it's also a committee, and I'm on the committee representing the committee.
No, understood. I suppose
understood at that
for everyone, I'm using you as my talking point, so that we don't have an issue.
Which committee?
These
Traffic
traffic
safety.
safety, so,
Well, if we're gonna talk about traffic safety, I should say there is a resolution of traffic safety, which I'd like to read into the record.
Recommendation, yep.
It's a document entitled Recommendation. Traffic Safety Committee has in the past had discussions pertaining to the safety of roads, police and fire station parking lots, and town buildings, including Pine Hill School, during snow events, both large and small. Therefore, the Traffic Safety Committee voted unanimously during its January 16th meeting to recommend that the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen include in the agenda of the next meeting a discussion of the deficiencies that have been identified in the past by this committee, as well as both the police and fire chiefs. The committee is confident that the town would be best served by addressing our safety concerns, which we have confirmed are shared by both the fire and police chiefs in the form of the Board of Selectmen. The board is also confident that if all parties work together, we can implement changes that will result in improvements in safety for the public, first responders, and especially our children in school buses. We ask the Board of Selectmen to act on this recommendation as soon as possible. Respectfully submitted, Bradley Van Brunt, Chairman, Sherborn Traffic Safety Committee. And if there's Bradley's not here, but if there's members of the Traffic Safety Committee who want to speak, I mean, this is part of tonight's presentation, so I would suggest that you allow
Sean
Colleen to speak if that's what he
Absolutely.
wants to.
My concern was that other people understood that this was, that this was part of the committee and the chiefs making a specific request. That it's not just a general free-form discussion of things,
Right.
things that, like that. So
Selectman Caruso's question was, has this only been raised in Ed's absence? An easy answer to that is no. It's not only in Ed's absence. Some of these issues we've been discussing since long before Ed was here.
no, understood.
Systematic issues.
We had numerous issues last year. And the year
Yeah.
before that was snowstorms and school, especially with the school buses getting stuck on Prospect Street. This year we have one stuck on Apple Street. This storm, we had issues with Apple Street, again, not being paid.
All right.
But what needs to be articulated is what is the issue? Everybody keeps saying, we have issues. And people say that snow hasn't been removed, but what is the issue?
Well, here's where
Somebody needs to say what the elephant is in the room. Seem to have a lot of careful.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, I suppose, and it has to be, I think, addressed carefully, is that there are some. Well, I don't want to take anybody's thunder away, but I also realize it's an uncomfortable position for anybody to be talking to, right? The elephant in the room,
We've got,
and I'm happy to address it.
there's a couple issues, and,
We have to tread carefully.
as the board is aware, I am looking into them, and, we'll be addressing them.
These are internal
These are
personnel and
internal
command and control issues.
internal departmental issues,
Correct.
and, they're being addressed. And, right now, with snowstorms in some of the instances that Sue's referring to and, that, Mr. Kalina referring to, are inherent with snowstorms.
Right.
The buses being stuck on Apple, the buses being stuck on Hunting. Now, this past storm I went through after our 1 tons, and when you receive a significant snowfall, these are very narrow roads that are lined with trees, and a lot of them you have some slopes coming in that our vehicles, and frankly, no other vehicle is gonna be able to get this snow up and off the roads. These are very narrow roads to begin with, and when you add 30 inches of snow in there, you're not gonna get these things wide enough for 2 vehicles to pass, because on a clear summer day, 2 vehicles can barely pass to begin with. It is what it is. Those roads there, I've gone through, I've plowed them. As vehicles come head to head with each other, they go off the road, the snow's back out in the road, and it will appear that they haven't been plowed. They have been plowed. It's the nature of the beast.
No, but,
So
excuse
the
me.
issue is that the roads are too narrow? That's
No.
what all this problem is?
No, Paul.
Oh, no,
hold
no,
on.
no, no,
We're-
no,
we're-
That's why I'm saying, what is the elephant in the room?
We're coming to it. We've got a public document here that has been submitted, right? As part of the meeting packet. But Peter, I didn't mean to cut you off, so you go ahead, because I was,
Well, I just, what I'm trying to get to is, I think very highly of Ed. He's very capable CM&D director, but he can't solve all the problems. If there's a difficult plowing activity that needs to take place, I'd hate to think that he's the guy getting in the truck and fixing it. And just the other day, I drove into town hall, and there's the big dump truck plowing along, putting some stuff out, spreading some stuff. Ed gets out of the truck, and I'm thinking, gee whiz, what's he doing driving the truck? But so my question gets to, management versus personnel and where those issues lie. And I'm not suggesting, how can we help Ed manage better is one aspect to it, but sometimes you have unmanageable personnel, and that may be the other element to this thing. And so there, I set you up, sir.
No, it's fine. It just cracks me up that a huge percentage of the town talks about this issue over beer. And here we are dancing around this thing.
Well, all we have are
Right?
chocolate kisses.
I'm sorry, I did not bring beer, we would have discussed it.
But before we even get there,
Yeah.
I mean, the public's been treated to listening to Mayor Menino talk about the fact that in Boston, most of the plowing is done by contractors. They're
Yes.
not done by town employees at all. So most of our citizens are gonna start with the assumption that what we're talking about are contractors.
Right, this
And
is
is
not
that
the
what we're
issue.
talking about? Contractors who need better contracts?
Look, the issue's been for a long time.
That's why I'm saying over and over again, what is the issue?
There has been.
Department
I'd
personnel.
love to answer that question.
Wait, Sean Colleen,
Oh my,
go ahead, answer.
I think
Answer
Alex
the-
that might add something.
Yeah, no,
Answer.
you ask what the elephant in the room is, and you just open the gate to it.
Yeah.
You've asked CM&D to cut back expenses to keep their rates low. To go out in the beginning of a storm like this, hire trucks that are big enough to plow these side roads, they're not available. And you can't line them up in advance if you're the lowest paying contractor around. So you put him at a disadvantage when he puts 1-ton trucks out there trying to push twice the depths of snow on these roads with no place to put them. And it takes a long time to overcome that, and you get a couple of breakdowns, or you work guys for 24 or 36 hours straight, the whole system begins to break down.
That's a problem. I can see that. We need more equipment and more money to get at it. But I don't think
This
that's
situation has developed to this point, so you don't have the opportunity to be prepared for that big storm that comes once every 20 years.
No, I'm with you on that, but I think, do you have a different kind of answer to
I
the issue?
do.
Because my answer is.
I do, because
Okay, let's get
we're
to
not
that.
here and we can't be here to talk about finite personnel issues. That's
No,
not the
but
task
we can
of
talk
this.
in general terms
Certainly,
about-
traffic safety has no business being in the middle of that.
Sure.
But I do have a different perspective than some, because one, I'm on traffic safety, I have a fire radio, I know what's going on with the police, and also my bedroom window faces the CM&D garage. So I see some things that you don't want to see. But there is a couple of things that might be interesting. That there's data that's not out there, and you might be able to make some decisions if you had the data.
This is what
Like
we're
how
getting.
many crashes are caused during that time that either you should have known the roads were going to ice, or the police informed you that the roads are icy. What is the acceptable time for people to come in, clock in, from the point they clock in? What's the acceptable time for them to be on the roads? How many accidents are there between that time span?
Agreed.
Which you might be amazed how long that time span is.
Well,
It's pretty scary.
I probably
Because
wouldn't.
during that time span, I want you to remind you that while somebody's car is upside down on the road, the sander's not on the road. I leave. I have to go get the fire engine that weighs 60,000 pounds and roll that across town on a road that hasn't been sanded yet.
Right.
And there might be a CM&D guy in the highway barn not sanding.
That is exactly.
That's
right,
not
right
acceptable.
There. Now,
That's
right there,
systematic. That's not a personnel issue.
Right.
I'm talking
But
systematic.
That's getting
What
to
is the protocol for that?
That's getting to the issue, and what I think your committee and these gentlemen are asking is for us to make a systematic examination of exactly what you've asked for.
Right.
Because
we have call logs on the radio. We have surveillance systems.
We have been working for a long time with this issue. As you know, and Alex knows, and everybody in the room knows, this is not a new issue. And, were there not constraints on privacy and other things like that, we could really have a very frank discussion and actually get to the meat of the issue. We can't really do that. But under the guise of...
And I don't want to talk about any one issue.
No, nor do I.
I want to say, for example, what is that time span?
Well,
and why isn't the
Sean.
cameras that we pay for logging times on when the trucks are hitting
Let's
the road?
get to what was asked for here is an investigation of this and to get some appropriate resources on answering those questions. Susie, I'm gonna stop this here for a second, because I think it's important for me to get back to these guys. They're the ones who did this, because.
Traffic safety, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
As a member of the Traffic Safety Committee, I was wondering, as far as with the three chiefs that are up here, is there a priority list or something, a priority, the way that they do the roads, do they do the fire stations first, the police station? What's the priority? Is there some kind of system where we know where they go first and then what roads they get to? Is it major roads, Woodland Street? I heard the other day on Woodland Street, I heard them calling on the radio. Hey, we need a sander out here, we've got ice 200 feet.
I think this is what we need to find out. This is the kind of thing we need to find out, and that's why, I don't want to get into asking all those questions now, because those are the questions that are all going to get asked. And I think it's important. You made the point, I agree with you. You made the point, I agree with you. You made the point, I agree with you. That there are three separate sets of concerns about how this works. And I'm also taking a driver from you guys to do this. So suffice it to say, without getting into a long harangue here, because I think we all understand pretty much what the questions are, and they're all really important. Have to do with public safety, your ability to do your jobs, Ed's ability to expand and run his department properly, and get the services to us that we need. So the ask is, by traffic safety, I think providing voice to this entire group, that we investigate and implement changes to improve the safety of the public, our first responders, and especially our children in school buses. I would move that the Board of Selectmen adopt that challenge and define an appropriate way to do that with the town administrator and any other such resources as might be required to accomplish that goal.
I second your motion. For discussion, I mean, it is, Alex raised the point. I have no idea what we pay or whether we put pressure on paying the lower rate going. I know we're conscious of costs and so forth, but this is also one of these things we deficit spend on anyway. The budget is the same darn budget, year after year after year. And then
let's keep ourselves broadly applied to this problem.
I understand, but
I'm working on getting reimbursement for some of the storm, but the whole point, just go back a second, do we use contractors for the town?
Yeah.
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
And is there a difference between what the contractors do and what our employees do? Is one better or worse?
Our guys will handle the smaller sanding operations, and once we hit a plowing operation, all the contractors are called. And when I say once we hit a plowing, they're usually called about an hour, 2 hours before we believe we're gonna be plowing to get them in.
Or you try to get that.
Our rates are comparable with other towns.
Just on that point, I know that every year you come in here and you show us these astronomical rates, and every time you recommend even higher rates so that we get the contractors that you want. And we've been approving higher and higher rates for these contractors. But again, Mayor Menino is talking about suing contractors for not doing the job. Are our contractors doing the job? Is that an issue here? Should we be?
Why don't we, wait, no, I'm with you.
Our contractors are doing their job. This year, I think we're 2 or 3 light, that we've advertised, 4 times, Jeannie?
Well, guys, wait a minute. Can I propose something? Your questions are really important. But instead of having an answer coming from Ed, whom is on the spot for making these decisions, I think that we should incorporate these kinds of questions into the general third-party panel that's going to look at this. Putting Ed on the spot to answer, of course he thinks they're doing right, and we approved the money. We should feel like we were doing the right thing too. I think these are the kinds of things we need to determine so that we don't get into a circumstance where we're once again batting a ping pong ball back and forth across the town. Let's get somebody to look at this
I totally agree.
objectively.
I think it's, rather than forming another committee or something, I think you were alluding to, we've got a TA coming on board.
That's correct.
Yeah, we're gonna have to help him prioritize all these tests, because he's got a long list of things to dive into.
He's a
That's
powerful
life in
tool.
the fast lane, so.
He's a powerful tool. Let's deploy him.
Certainly, he's gonna be tapping into the expertise of these folks in traffic safety to
And he's the right guy.
be able to provide us the facts
Correct.
from which any action might need to be taken, but I don't know that we can take any action beyond
if he feels
what you wanna do here.
Right. I want to empower the TA to do this, instruct him to do this, and instruct him also that if he needs the services of the Labor Council, for example,
Yes, right.
to do this, that he should have access to it, or if he needs to determine what proper pricing is for contractors to be able to survey other towns, if he needs to find out whether or not we have gross violations that result in liabilities, we need to quantify those. Whatever he needs to do, we need to adopt this charge, and I think it's moved and seconded.
Yeah, moved and seconded. So further to the discussion, though, if I could, if they have anything further to add beyond what we've
It should be iterative, they should be
moved
involved.
and adopted to friendly amend, if you will, to the extent it needs to broaden what you've made a motion on. That's all, because
will this
I don't
help?
know if they're going away satisfied, or they're going away thinking
I want some
that enough is
teeth in
gonna be
this.
done.
I don't want this issue to continue. There are things that we're not talking about tonight that we know about. They're subsumed in this and will be taken care of in this,
Yeah.
in this examination. I want you guys to feel, and the town to feel, that Alex is concerned that we're spending our money wisely, is taken into account. And that Sean's concerned that we already have resources deployed to do personnel management and machine management and process management in the delivery of our services. That Ed is also supported in terms of having the appropriate kinds of support in his negotiations that he needs to get these things done in the same way that you guys do. So if this has got enough teeth in it, then I'll feel comfortable, and we'll expect that you guys will stay involved with us to make sure that you're getting some kind of feedback that is going to make a difference. I don't want to just sit here and bat our gums about this, put it back in the box, right? I'd like us to have this out of the box and get something done about it so we can answer all those questions. They're all good questions. One more quick one, Susie.
One quick one, can I also thank all the firefighters that were out there shoveling, and
You
certainly all
bet.
the other CM&D employees that were out there pushing the snow.
You bet. We
shoveling
did
snow.
we thanked everybody
No,
earlier.
We thank the chiefs for doing a wonderful job, thank the actual workers.
Absolutely. We are very
Actually,
grateful.
We thank the workers.
You know, we are actually grateful for all the people who help keep our town safe.
We did.
And we did indeed.
So you,
So,
what we're doing?
are you happy with our charge?
Yeah.
And you will stay on it, right? All right,
Only lingering question is if the TA comes on
March 4th.
March 4th, what if there's another storm? As I say, I
Document-
think spring has already
No,
arrived, but
Sean's done the right thing. Document, document, document. Until then, I'm going to impose on you guys to make notes, document things, say what you need to say, and write it down, so that, very much in the spirit of what was done here, to do that, I wish I could deploy the resources that you need right now. I can't, but what we can do is do everything we can to structure getting off the ground in a meaningful way. So document everything. One piece of paper at a time is what a wise friend once said to me. So gentlemen, I appreciate.
shall we vote the motion?
Oh, yes, we're moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks
I
very
didn't mean
much.
to get long-winded there, but I'm propped up with bottles of O2, so it's great.
Speaking
you running
about-
along?
Yeah, I'm running low. I'm running low.
About the O2, we're finished the agenda, I move we adjourn.
Oh, second the adjournment. Oh, we got one more. Elliot?
On snow removal, years ago, the mayor of Boston, James Michael Curley,
Yes.
was getting all kinds of complaints about the snow removal. He said, the Lord put it there, the Lord can take it away.
Thank you, sir. All in favor? Aye.
Where's the water?
Right here. I have everything you need.
With